Hello, I'm Marty Duda, and it's time for another 13th Floor Music Talk interview. Today I'm talking to Kate Vargas about her new album, Rumpumpo. Although she's based in New York City, Kate was in Hawaii when I spoke to her, where she's ready to reveal the origins of Rumpumpo. I'll give you a hint, it has something to do with Newton's first law of motion and also Jackson Browne. Watch, listen, and enjoy. So now the album is being released on Friday. Are you going to be in Hawaii for Friday?
I'm going to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, good way to celebrate.
I'll be here.
Have you got any plans? What are you going to do on Friday?
I don't have any music plans, but we are going to go to like a special beach.
Oh, good on you. That sounds fun. And is it really hot as well?
It's actually not as hot as I thought it would be. Yeah. It's in the 80s, you know.
Right. It's winter here, so that's why I ask. I'm just jealous.
What's it like over there? It's cold?
It's winter, yes. So we're in New Zealand, we're the opposite of everyone else. So when it's summer in the top, it's cold. It's winter in the bottom.
So maybe I'll come visit you in December.
That would be excellent. December and January. We have a lot of overseas artists that come in January because of that particular thing. And we have a lot of music festivals and stuff. So yeah, that would be great if you've never been here, I assume then, right?
No, never.
Very cool. So how are you feeling about releasing the album?
I'm excited. It's been a while coming, you know.
Yeah.
It didn't quite make a year past like intended release date, but almost. Right.
So, and I assume it's all COVID related.
Yeah. We couldn't get into the studio, you know, when we had scheduled, and then my producer. Well, then we couldn't get into the same room together anyway.
That's a problem.
So yeah, everything shifted, but it worked out in the end. It really did, and I'm super excited to get it out, and I'm proud of it. You know.
So currently, you're actually based in New York City, is that right?
Yes.
So is that where you recorded the album?
No, that's where we had intended to record the album, but I ended up recording it in Los Angeles. And you know, I had it's a best laid plans thing, I guess, for everyone who's existing these days. But I had this idea that we just book 2 days in the studio and go in, hit record, and to do it that way, totally live, you know.
Yep.
And I was so dead set on that too. And what ended up happening was there was just no way to do that. And my producer, who's in Brooklyn, ended up in Los Angeles, moving. And then we ended up around Los Angeles, staying with friends during COVID. And so we were able to go in, you know, masked and everything, and record with my producer. And then my drummer was in New York, bass player in New York, and they all were able to record separately.
Remotely, right?
Yeah. And the nice thing is that those guys I've played with, they both played on my last album. Grambo, my drummer, played on the last two. We went to college together. We've known each other a while, so we know each other, you know.
Right.
And I think that helped a lot,
sure.
You know, to be able to, because it's hard. It is hard remotely, but they just nailed it.
Good on them.
They did. Yeah. Yeah.
So the album is called Rumpumpo. Is that correct?
Rumpumpo. Yeah.
And from what I've read, the title track, which is the first song on the album, is somehow related to Newton's first law of physics and Jackson Browne. I'm not. Explain, please.
And with a smile, she reached over me and turned the dial. Rum pum pum, rum pum pum, the push and pull. Radio, we sing rum pum pum, rum pum pum. Como es que no me muevo.
Well, that sounds very intriguing, much more than maybe it is, but yeah. So Rumpumpo, yeah, it's related to Newton's laws of motion. That song particularly, the first law of motion, objects in motion stay in motion,
Right.
Objects at rest stay in rest, unless an outside force comes along, basically. And
Yep.
and what happened was that I had that momentum, and then we all went into lockdown, and everything came to a screeching halt. And when I went out to California, I was talking to a friend, and he mentioned that first. I was saying I cannot get going again. I just can't. And so he sort of mentioned that first law of motion, and I don't know, it just struck me at that time. I was like, oh, I need an outside force. I need
Right.
And I guess I'm still kind of figuring out what exactly it was, but I found it, whatever it was,
Yeah.
and was able to get moving again.
Right.
And so I decided, I sat down and wrote the song Rumpumpo. And made up the word Rumpumpo to
I was wondering if it was something I should know, but I may have missed it.
It's nothing anybody should know, but it's a word I made up to describe that feeling of wanting to get the momentum going again.
Right. Yeah.
And I bet they have a word for that in German. They have a word for everything cool like that. But yeah, but so that was that. And then the Jackson Browne bit was that I was in California and was not expecting to record the album while I was out there, but it worked out. So I didn't have my guitar, and my partner is friends with Jackson, but we also have this connection because I go to this holiday music motel in Wisconsin that's owned by Pat McDonald of Timbuk 3,
right?
And some other cool people, and Jackson Browne is part of that whole scene, and he did the first festival that they did, and so we have this connection. And anyway, called him up and said we need a guitar, and he invited us over and brought out these 3 cool old Gibsons, and was like, just try these, and and then he was like, that's the one for you. Right. He's like, that one sounds right for you. Okay. So that's what
you're gonna argue with Jackson? Of course not.
No, never. So he just that's the guitar on the album is Jackson's guitar, and he was so generous with it.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with that guitar.
Cool.
And it's, yeah.
Were you tempted to play These Days on it or something like that? Just to...
I didn't even think about it. Missed opportunity.
There you go. Now, as we're talking, if I'm not mistaken, you have a video that's being set out onto the world in about 15 hours or so for a song called Glorietta. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Glorietta to the Holy Place is
right.
The full name. Yeah, that video is coming out tomorrow.
So I haven't seen it, obviously. Tell me all about it.
When Father Rodney called it the year of the faithful, the air inside the chapel changed. I pulled at threads around the edges of the hymnal and mouthed the Kyrie.
So he sort of mentioned that first law of motion, and I don't know, it just struck me at that time. I was like, oh, I need an outside force. I need
right.
And I guess I'm still kind of figuring out what exactly it was, but I found it, whatever it was,
yeah.
And was able to get moving again.
Right.
And so I I decided, I sat down and wrote the song Rumpumpo.
Mhm.
And made up the word Rumpumpo to
I was wondering if it was something I should know, but I may have missed it.
It's nothing anybody should know, but it's a word I made up to describe that feeling of, wanting to get the momentum going again.
Right. Yeah.
And I bet they have a word for that in German. They have a word for everything cool like that. But yeah, but so that was that. And then the Jackson Browne bit was that I was in California and was not expecting to record the album while I was out there, but it worked out. So I didn't have my guitar. And my partner is friends with Jackson, but we also have this connection because I go to this holiday music motel in Wisconsin that's owned by Pat McDonald of Timbuk 3,
right?
And some other cool people, and Jackson Browne is part of that whole scene, and he did the first festival that they did, and so we have this connection. And anyway, called him up and said we need a guitar, and he invited us over and brought out these 3 cool old Gibsons, and was like, just try these, and and then he was like, that's the one for you, right? He's like, that one sounds right for you. Okay, so that's what
you're gonna argue with Jackson. Of course not.
No, never. So he just that's the guitar on the album is Jackson's guitar, and he was so generous with it.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with that guitar.
Cool.
And it's, yeah.
Were you tempted to play These Days on it or something like that? Just to...
I didn't even think about it. Missed opportunity.
There you go. Now, as we're talking, if I'm not mistaken, you have a video that's being set out onto the world in about 15 hours or so for a song called Glorietta. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Glorietta to the Holy Place is
right.
The full name. Yeah. That video is coming out tomorrow.
So I haven't seen it, obviously. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, it's the song it's a special song to me. I grew up in New Mexico, and I like to incorporate that into my songwriting when I can. Right. Some incredible stories come out of New Mexico, and this particular song is about the pilgrimage to this church in Chimayo that people do yearly. Well, people do it throughout the year, but yearly, mostly in April. And I got very interested in that pilgrimage during the pandemic and what that looked like. And so I just sort of created a story around it. Little girl from Glorietta, New Mexico, which is about 40 miles from Chimayo, and growing up in the Catholic Church and hearing and also dealing with the pandemic and thinking, seeing adults in that who are confused and distraught and thinking, what can I do? And remembering about the pilgrimage to Chimayo, which has this healing sand. Gotcha. They say the sand there is healing sand, and so she sneaks out to go make this pilgrimage to Chimayo to sort of help in whatever way she thinks she she can. Yep. And so the video is an animation. Sky Age Rocks did, and it's so beautiful. I love his style is really cool and unique, and it's sort of a black background with white almost like line drawings or something, but it's really well done. And I sent him every pictures of everything, so pictures of like the road to Chimayo and,
great. Okay.
And the church, and it was interesting. I found him online, and he's in, I think, Indonesia. But so it was an interesting thing to describe these things to him that he wasn't totally familiar with, you know?
Right.
And saying like, oh, you know, it was good for me too, because I'd have to say, oh, you know, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and
Right.
and so I'd say, you know, in the church, usually instead of chairs, it's like these pews.
Yep.
I'd send him pictures of the pews and pictures of the hymnal, and this is what a Catholic priest would, you know, I'd send him pictures of that, and it was great. It was like a really, and he was so really listened, you know. But I think the video is kind of exactly the story that I pictured in my head.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah.
And music-wise, I've heard some flute, I believe, especially at the beginning of the track.
Yes.
Is that you playing the flute?
Yes.
Because that's what you started out doing, right?
Yeah. I started playing flute when I was 8 years old, and you know, studied classically, and then got into jazz flute, and then went to college for jazz flute.
Right.
But you know, decided
you went to Berkeley,
it wasn't,
right? So
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. But decided it wasn't cool enough, and switched to guitar, and put the flute down, and so. But during the lockdown, I picked the flute up again and had a lot of fun with it. And so it was a treat to be able to do that.
Right.
To play some flute on here.
Cool.
Even if it's not exactly as polished as I would.
Well, I mean, there's a certain charm to that. Going back to Rumpumpo, I think I hear clarinet or trumpet, and there's just like this kind of party vibe to the track. It almost reminds me of Rainy Day Women, you know, the thing where everybody kind of switched instruments around. And you told me that the rhythm section is kind of not even there. So how did you get that vibe?
Well, kind of like, so we had, I knew I wanted horns, and I kind of knew like the sound of what I wanted, but couldn't describe it because I tried to describe it, but you know, I'm more of a writer than I'm certainly no horn player. So the words I was using was like, I want it to sound like debaucherous,
right?
Raucous, you know. And so it was trying to find a player like that, and we actually well, I don't know. Anyway, we went with someone else initially who was a really good horn player, but and he worked, you know. But it was like trying to find the horn player that was like just crazy enough,
right,
to and this guy Stuart Cole, he plays with Edward Sharpe in the Magnetic Zeros and stuff, and so I went through this list of players, you know, looking on their Instagrams and things. And my producer sent me a list. I'm like looking on their Instagrams, and I was like, this is the guy. This guy does weird stuff. This is the guy. So, and he was perfect. And so he, some of those horns, I don't even exactly know what they are. Alto horns. And I mean, I have them written down somewhere, but not things I'd ever played with before.
Cool.
And he's a really cool player.
Excellent.
You know.
Now there's a track called Spit 3 Times. In the middle of the album, which I have to ask you, are you superstitious? Because I think that's kind of the whole vibe of, you know, what's happening there lyrically, and don't step on the crack and all that.
Don't step on a crack, salt down your back, nickel in the wine, spit 3 times.
Yeah, I think maybe I have my things,
right?
But not so superstitious, I guess. No, I wouldn't describe myself as superstitious. But that song I wrote with a couple friends, Wally Ingram and Barrett Taskey, in Wisconsin at that holiday music motel. And in June, the theme is bridges. And they've been doing the theme for like 12 years.
Right.
And so, you know, you got to get creative. After 12 years, a lot of songs have been written about bridges. And so we talked about someone who's very superstitious, you know, crossing the bridge in their car and trying to remember which thing it is they're supposed to do when they cross the bridge. Is it, do I touch a screw, or do I hold my breath, or do I do the, and coming up on the bridge and not remembering like what it was, you know, what the superstition was.
Right.
And so going through all of them, all the ones that this person can remember. And so, yeah, and spitting 3 times is a superstition.
I was unaware of that one.
I had never heard. Sure me neither. Yeah, me neither.
All right. I'm sure there are plenty like that. And then a couple of tunes kind of allude to what's going on in the world these days. There's Left Shoe, and then the closer, Like Apollo, which you know, it says the piper has been paid, so why is nothing working? And I think people kind of feel that way. So what inspired you to write that?
Tunnel and vision, crystals and potions. I was raging blind, I was moving through the motions. Sick in the alley, a savior is lurking. The piper's been paid, so why is nothing working?
Yeah, that's another one I wrote with some friends, Josh Hardy and Feathered Mason. And yeah, that was, you know, really, actually just wrote an essay on self-help. And
I saw that. Yeah.
So that's sort of this along the same lines, you know, just so desperately like trying to figure out what's wrong, and it's something doesn't feel right, and kind of all the things that we go through, and trying to, you know, ease that. It's actually a great story. Is we were writing to a painting, and we were given the painting, a picture of it as like a scan,
right? And
it looked so dark, and it looked like kind of this demon, like over a body, like that. Right. And we were like, wow, this is like really dark. and then so we were writing to that, and then we went to see the actual piece, and it was like totally different.
Oh, really?
It was an archer. So the first line is, my filter malfunctioned. I saw it darker. I've been missing the mark. I didn't know I was the archer. And so that's kind of what happened. Then we saw this painting that was actually like very heroic looking.
Right.
And like saving someone, not hurting someone.
Gotcha.
And so it was also this exploration of like perspective on ourselves and on the world, and how just the slightest shift can completely change perspective.
Interesting. Yeah. So do you write often essays about things like self-help, or
no,
most of it goes into songwriting?
Yeah, that was the first essay I've written since school. I was really nervous about it, but it was fun.
Why did you do it?
I was just presented with the opportunity, and I thought it would be interesting.
Okay.
You know, I have a lot of ideas.
I'm sure you
just don't usually come out that way.
Very good. And so are you able to do live shows? Well, you're in Hawaii now, so probably not there, but when you go back to New York?
We've done here. We've done.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did some shows in California, about 5.
Oh, cool.
And then one here on Maui, and we have another one on Thursday here. Mm-hmm. So we're getting back into the swing of things, which has been, you know, both good and both like very satisfying and entirely overwhelming at the same time. And
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's happening.
It's happening. Very
Yeah.
good. Well, it's nice that you're in Hawaii.
Yes. Yes.
Even though you're 22 hours behind me, it feels like you're much closer than if I was talking to somebody in New York. So there you go.
That's right. That's right.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it. I hope everything goes well when the release comes up on Friday. I love the album. Come on down to New Zealand if you get a chance. We'd love to have you.
All right.
Bring
Cool.
the band.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.